Well, her job was to fight for the underdog and take on corporate America. If big business broke the rules and hurt consumers, Hannah Hickman would be the lawyer taking them on. Now she is the one getting hurt. She was just getting ready to turn in for the night, and a termination notice popped up on her cell phone. She'd been cut from her job at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the agency established after 2008 and the financial crisis where banks blew up and so did all your loans. Now Hannah has become just another casualty in the widespread firings and unprecedented purge of the federal workforce under President Trump, who's empowering Elon Musk to dramatically slash the government's budget.
Learn to code.
Middle MAGA.
Imagine waking up one day and realizing the government built an entire branch of power that doesn't actually exist in the Constitution. There's no vote, no debate. It's just there. It's untouchable, operating in plain sight. And somehow we're all just supposed to pretend like it's normal. Well, Trump isn't pretending. His administration is actively trying to overturn the Supreme Court ruling that made this whole disastrous system possible. If he wins, the power structure of the federal government could be changed forever. What are we talking about here? Let's talk about these independent, in quotation, agencies.
Since 1887, Congress has created many independent agencies that are located outside the structure of executive departments. These agencies do more than merely implement congressional statutes. The first independent agency was the Interstate Commerce Commission. Congress directed the commission to decide whether the rates that states imposed on interstate commerce were reasonable, a partial or quasi-legislative power, and to order the states to stop imposing unreasonable charges. Congress also empowered the commission to go to court to enforce its orders. In 1894, the Supreme Court held that the authority of Congress had given to the commission was a necessary and proper exercise of its power to regulate commerce. Since then, Congress has created more independent agencies. These agencies include the Social Security Administration, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Peace Corps, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
Independent agencies aren't just unconstitutional, they're a scam. They are a loophole so massive that Congress built an entire branch of government out of it. This branch, this secret branch, enforces the law without the president's authority. The FEC, the SEC, the Federal Reserve, these aren't watchdogs. They're accountable power structures. They're unaccountable power structures that execute laws while they're pretending that they don't. And that's the problem. They execute. But if they execute, then they're executive. That's what the word means. And if they're executive, there's only one place they belong, under the president's full control, or they don't belong anywhere at all. Let's look at the Federal Exchange Committee. The FEC enforces campaign finance laws. It investigates violations. It hands down penalties. That's enforcement. That's execution. But the president, the one person the Constitution, the only one person the Constitution says is responsible for executing laws, has no control over it.
Our oath was to defend the Constitution. And right now, literally at this moment, that Constitution is under the most direct and consequential assault in our nation's history. And how we respond to it will define our life's work, our place in history, and the future of our country. None of us will ever face a greater challenge.
Independent Senator from Maine Angus King on the Senate floor this week laying out what is at stake as Donald Trump begins his second term. So let's talk about the people who are standing up to this administration. The American people don't know who she is, but who she is the chairwoman of the Federal Election Commission. She refused to leave her job after Donald Trump tried to remove her, and she said he didn't do it legally. She's going to fight it. How important is it for people like Ellen to stand up and say, I'm not leaving?
That's exactly the playbook that should be followed. You don't have the authority to do this. There are ways to remove me from my job. I don't have a job for life. But to say, no, you don't have the legal authority to do this. I'm not going anywhere. You're going to have to take me, dragging at me out of this office. That's the move.
Should we put our hope or our faith in the courts? Because thus far, besides an Ellen Weintraub saying, hell no, I won't go, we are seeing at least pauses from the court saying, You don't have the power to do this.
Can't fire commissioners, can't direct their actions, can't step in if they go rogue. The people who are making these decisions, they're sitting in 6-year terms, insulated from both Congress and the White House. That's not oversight. That's a power grab. Independent federal agencies are structured to operate with a degree of autonomy from both the executive and the legislative branches. That's not a bug, it's a feature. This is not a feature of the Constitution, though. It's just been completely made up. What have they done? They've done fixed terms for commissioners. The leaders of these agencies are appointed for set terms that span multiple years, so they don't have to go and come as people introduce and vote in a new president. They stagger the appointments on purpose again, so it doesn't matter who you vote for, Kamala or Trump. They're the same people that are working in the underbelly. Many agencies have rules mandating that no more than a simple majority of commissioners belong to the same political party. Why is that? They weren't elected. They're in the executive branch. They should be in the executive branch. Commissioners can only be removed typically by the president for specific reasons. The president should be able to remove anybody for whatever reason they want. And it's not just the FEC, it's also the SEC, the Federal Reserve, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They all do the same thing. Congress creates them, gives them power to regulate industries, fine businesses, launch investigations, executive actions, all while making sure they never have to answer to the president. If the president actually tries to rein them in, here we go. It's undermining democracy. And we're going straight to the courts. But this isn't new. In 1935, the Supreme Court ruled in Humphrey's Executor versus the United States that the president can't fire independent agency heads without cause. That decision is the reason why the FEC and other agencies get to pretend they don't work for the executive branch, despite doing executive work. Congress took that ruling and ran with it. They created more and more independent agencies after that, each one stacking a layer of bureaucracy between the people and the person they actually elected to enforce the law. And it worked. Presidents come and go. These agencies don't. The people in them don't come and go nearly as fast. They don't get kicked out. They don't get booted out, depending on whether it's Bush, Clinton, Trump, or anyone else. They outlast every administration, every scandal, every shift in power. And what happens when they get caught abusing their authority? Nothing. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau tried to fund itself outside of congressional appropriations illegally. What's going on with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is they're using the good-sounding title to hide an unconstitutional, illegal process. This group here, you can say it, the CFPB, was designed to operate independently. Instead of receiving annual funding from Congress, the Financial Bureau Protection draws its budget directly from the Federal Reserve. Oh, wow. They go straight to the source. That's obviously unconstitutional. There is no money in DC that should be spent that's not appropriated through Congress. But if you're okay with the Federal Reserve, now we've opened up Pandora's box. An independent agency that's unconstitutional is unconstitutionally taking money that's not been appropriated. How do you decide how much is determined? The amount is determined by the director of the CFPB based on the agency needs, subject to a statutory cap. The funding structure was established to insulate the agency from political pressures, so they try to justify it by saying, oh, we have to do that to protect you and ensure the stable financial base for its consumer protection activities. Do you think, while they're insider trading, the politicians, do you think they care about protecting you? In 2022, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit ruled that the CFPB's funding structure was unconstitutional, asserting that it violated the Appropriations Clause of the U.S. Constitution. However, the decision was subsequently overturned by this supposedly crazy right-wing Supreme Court. Well, I guess right-wing means not based. In May of last year, they upheld the constitutionality of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's funding mechanism. What a disaster that our Supreme Court is. The Federal Reserve obviously wields more control over the economy than elected officials do. That's not what our founding fathers wanted set up. The FEC is supposed to oversee campaign finance, but deadlock so often that corrupt cases just pile up and disappear. They don't answer to voters. They don't answer to the president. So who do they answer to? These agencies aren't just independent, they're permanent. Presidents leave, Congress flips, these agencies stay, the same people, the same power, the same agenda, just dressed up for whatever political moment we're in. And now, for the first time in nearly a century, a president is actively trying to tear this system down. Not the democracy, the unconstitutional, and this is what we talk about, administrative state. It's not the deep state. The deep state, though, hides underneath the administrative state. So it's like we're trying to tear down the walls of the White House to get to the termites that are hiding inside it. Trump's Justice Department is arguing that Humphrey's Executor was wrongly decided when they said that the president couldn't terminate people underneath the executive branch. If the Supreme Court agrees, it could wipe out the entire concept of independent agencies. But I wouldn't hold my breath. The Federal Reserve would be in danger, the SEC, the FEC, dozens of agencies that have ruled unchecked for decades, they could be gone. Imagine if it did go through, though. Imagine a government where the people actually elected to enforce the laws are the ones enforcing the laws. But this isn't just about Trump. If this ruling is overturned, every future president will have the power to clean house. So I'm arguing for the power of the president. If Jasmine Crockett, by some weird way, gets to be president, she would have the same powers. All these people in Washington, they're terrified. They're calling this a power grab. It's not a power grab if the power was never supposed to be stolen in the first place. So here's the question. If the people who actually hold power never have to face voters, then what's the point of voting at all? Seriously, tell me in the comments. Because if elections don't change the people making the real decisions, then maybe it's time we stop pretending that voting alone is enough. If you get what I'm saying, share this video. More people need to wake up. More people need to see how deep this goes. And if you want to see what happens when a president actually tries to take back control, stick around, because I will criticize Trump, but I will back him when he's right. And that's the fight that's happening right now.
Middle MAGA.